Hello, and welcome to The View From Here, a show created by students around the world about local stories that have an impact on all of our communities globally. I'm Angelique Jikarin.
I'm Vincent LeComte.
And I'm Marina Yap. We are from Toronto Metropolitan University in Canada.
Hello, I'm Kato van der Wal.
Hallo, goedemorgen. Ik ben Nienke. I'm from Breda University of Applied Sciences in the Netherlands.
The cost of just about everything keeps going up, no matter where we live. In this episode of The View From Here, we're going to be comparing how expensive it is to live in Toronto versus the Netherlands.
Yes, Vincent. Throughout the show, you will get along to Nienke and I take a journey through the Netherlands to see just how much an everyday costs here. Let's get started.
Did you know 10% of all Dutch trains are cancelled each year? That's around 220,000 trains a year. You could say we're used to it by now. The rent prices recently.
Oh my god, yes. It's so expensive. Everything is so expensive. My groceries are so expensive.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I cannot keep up with the payments I have to do.
Yeah, my rent went to 520.
520?
520 euros per month.
Oh my
That's
god.
insane.
It's so much.
But yeah.
Oh my god, I just got a notification that the gas is almost empty.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
Okay, well let's go.
Spend more money. Oh.
Did you know that a liter of gas is almost 2 euros in the Netherlands? That's absurd, right?
We'll continue our journey in a few minutes.
Too bad your train got canceled. It happens all the time in Toronto. How often does it happen in the Netherlands?
I would say at least 3 or 4 times a day per person. So many people get their trains cancelled.
Well, here's a fun fact. We checked, and a train from the farthest northern point of the Netherlands to the south would take about 6 hours. To cross Canada from the east to the west coast would take about 4 or 5 days.
When it comes to getting to school in Toronto, we have trains, buses, and a subway system. But each of these options comes with its own set of problems, including delays, breakdowns, and congestion. Our classmates Bohana, Lucas, Alicia, Faye, and Melanie put students to the test to uncover the roadblocks in their commutes to school.
Scarborough, an area around 24 kilometers northeast of downtown Toronto. It's also where we find 3 Toronto Metropolitan University students. They're all trying to reach their final destination at the TMU campus in downtown Toronto, each using a different method of transportation. This is Hiba. She'll be taking the bus and then the subway downtown.
So it takes me an hour and a half to get to school, but I can't give an exact estimate just because there may be things that come my way, whether that's traffic, security incident, or delays.
Faye will be starting her journey at Agent Court GO station. Fun fact, GO stands for Government of Ontario.
It usually takes me about 40 minutes to get to school from here. I like it because it's cleaner, more efficient, and I have phone service on the train. But the downside is that it's a bit more expensive.
Pratt will be driving in the comfort of his car.
So depending on the time of the day, it takes me about an hour and a half for my 8 a.m. classes. Worst case scenario, 2 hours because of the construction and the DVP traffic.
Red is the bus and the subway, green is the GO train, and blue is for the car. The average student commutes at around 14 kilometers each way, at an average time of 45 minutes. The students taking transit use something called a Presto card. It costs $4 Canadian to set up, and then it lasts for a lifetime. You fill your Presto according to your age range and your student status. TMU has the second longest commute time for students on average across 10 post-secondary institutions in the Greater Toronto Area. And ever since the Line 3 Scarborough Rapid Transit subway line derailed, this permanently shut down the most and only convenient way of transferring subway lines. Now at 15 minutes into his commute, Pratt is well on his way to reaching the halfway point to school. But traffic congestion in Toronto is the worst in all of Canada. Day to day, Pratt never knows if there will be road closures, construction, or lane reductions that will slow him down.
Alright, so as we got onto the DVP, we've been hit with traffic immediately, so I can't even get on the DVP. Can't tell how long it's going to last, but hopefully not too long.
The GO train is much quieter than the subway. Faye is having a rather relaxing experience. As a regional public transit service for the Greater Toronto Area, it's used by commuters beyond the downtown and city proper area.
It cost me about $6.50 one way, so every day I have to spend almost $13, plus the price of the bus fares.
In fact, students spend an average of $220 taking transit each month. With the cost of tuition always going up and all of the other daily expenses of being a student, it sure adds up. But the price of gas and parking in Toronto isn't cheap either. Pratt has to shell out an average of $1.47 per liter for gas, and that's around €1 or $2. It results in higher costs considering Toronto's traffic congestion.
This is the parking ticket. We have now just parked. Luckily, we found something in the first parking lot, so we have to go all the way up and all the way down.
While Pratt arrived, Heba is still on the subway. Faye's just transferring off the GO train and onto the subway at Union Station. 20 minutes later, Heba also arrives at the Bloor-Yonge station, but still has to transfer onto Line 1.
So we just arrived at the atrium and we are on our way to the SLC. We should be there in about 2 minutes.
Finally, Heba clocks in at 1 hour and 10 minutes.
So driving here was relatively fast, but it was about 40 minutes today on the Don Valley Parkway. There's a lot of traffic as well.
So I only have 1 3-hour class today, so I'm going to have to make the commute back to Scarborough in reverse again. But it was faster than normal days to commute here, so I'm pretty happy overall.
It's cleaner, more efficient, and I prefer quality over convenience. I prefer going on the GO train.
An average of 77% of TMU students rely on local and regional transit to get to campus every day. I'm Boyana with Alicia, Faye, Lucas, and Mel, reporting for The View from Here in Toronto.
Many students take the bus or they walk to their university. But you can also, of course, cycle to your university.
As we said in our video, gas costs around €2 a liter. How much is it in Toronto?
In Toronto right now, gas is about $1.47 a liter, which is just under €1.
Let's continue now with the journey Kato and Yinka took across the Netherlands.
We got to the beach and now it's time to relax and eat something.
Did you know for 53% of the time it's raining in the Netherlands? I mean, at this point we're kind of used to it.
Hey, would you like a bitterball? Why don't you have any salsa packaging? Well, did you know that salsas cost €1 extra and packaging 50 cents extra, so $1.50 in total? That's crazy.
Kato, it's already 5:30. We have to go. Actually, in the Netherlands, we eat around 5:30 or 6 p.m. every single day, so it's really dinner time right now.
Vincent, did you know that it's very windy in the Netherlands? On average, it's 15 kilometers an hour. This is really bad as we cycle to most of our destinations.
Well, the biggest obstacle to cycling in Toronto would have to be snowy roads. But in the winter, the city's putting on more and more dedicated bike paths and hopefully keeping them plowed.
How much snow do you get in Toronto?
We have a lot more snow than you do, about 50 days every winter compared to roughly 6 to 15 days around Amsterdam.
Snow is not something we see here actually. We are glad if we get some snowflakes in January, but my snow boots have been collecting dust for the past 3 years.
Yeah.
You're watching The View from Here, a show created by students in 7 countries around the world.
This episode is produced at BUAS in Breda, the Netherlands, and at the TMU in Toronto, Canada.
And we produced other episodes at universities in Hong Kong, South Africa, the UK, Brazil, and Israel.
You can watch our shows on YouTube, Facebook, as well as on our website.
Meanwhile, while you stop for a snack, in your video you tried something we don't typically eat here. It's called bitterballen.
It looks like fried meatballs?
We decided to search for bitterballen in Toronto, and we found several places that sell them. I actually might have brought in a little bit of a surprise for us as well, if we want to try.
I would love to.
I mean, me personally, I've never tried bitterballen, so you know, I'm excited to dig in.
Should we go?
Yes,
I go first?
Yeah,
okay,
you go
okay.
first.
Okay, here it goes.
Let me take one too. Oh, this is really good.
Wow,
You know,
that's fantastic. This is breakfast.
I've eaten this before. I went to the Netherlands a few months ago. It was just hot and I had a mustard with it, but it tastes different being cold. I consider it to be
Cold.
like a fried...
No, these are warm and fresh.
These are
What
totally
do you mean?
warm.
I consider it to be like a fried chicken pot pie.
That's a
Just
good
a
way
I
to
can see that. I can
That's
really
a
see
good-
that.
Consistency?
It definitely not. I was expecting more meatballish, but it's good. Cheers, Netherlands.
Cheers.
Yeah, well, cheers as well, because
Let's
we
cheers
wanted
our
to.
meatballs. Is that
Very-
sanitary? That's not sanitary.
Mine's gone.
Yeah. We wanted to try something very Canadian as well, and we discovered poutine. So we have made our little batch of poutine ourselves. So
Yes.
we've never tried it actually before, both of us.
No, I'm
So-
very excited to try it. Let's dig in.
Me too.
Oh,
I love fries in general, so
How does
this should be good. I hope it's good. Wait. Oh, it's kind of stuck. Actually,
I don't really like it.
I don't hate it. I don't hate
She
it.
doesn't like it.
You like this?
I like cheese a lot. so-
We actually have a treat in the Netherlands
React.
as well with fries. This is topped off with meat, lettuce, and garlic sauce.
It's called-
Do you guys not really like it, or what's the
No.
thought?
Is it cold?
Is
It's
it
fries
cold for you
and
guys too?
cheese.
Yeah, it usually tastes better warm.
Yeah, it's cool. But
Okay.
I'm just trying to imagine it being warm. So
I don't like it.
It's way different when it's cold. I feel like it's way better when it's warm.
It
Well,
also depends
my-
on like the fries you're
Well-
using.
it depends on the fries that you're
Oh
using.
yes.
Yeah.
Besides this, we also really like the bottle snacks we eat. These are also included with the bitterballen, meat sausages, and other croquettes. And it's a big hit here.
Yeah.
What does burl mean?
There's a huge variety of foods in Toronto. There are more than 250 ethnicities in our city of 3 million people.
Our classmate, Nick McAllister, is a guy from a small town, like me. And when he got to Toronto, he found the city a little overwhelming, but soon learned to find comfort in the change through exploring Toronto's diverse food culture.
I moved to Toronto last year. It was weird. Everything was so fast. I grew up in a town that wasn't small, but by comparison feels tiny. I felt a little surprised. I expected to enjoy it a bit more, but it felt very foreign to me. I spent the first bit just sitting in my apartment, studying, or playing video games, or just sitting around. Eventually, I decided to explore. I was both hungry and in need of something to look at other than the 4 walls of my room, so I went on an adventure. This was much bigger than Whitby. Soon my exploration would take me a bit further than Pizza at 2 a.m. Did you know that there are about 160 different languages spoken by Toronto residents? Walking down the street near my new place made it feel like there were a million different new foods to try. Eventually I found myself in Chinatown. I'd never had dumplings before. These days they're a staple, especially after a bad day. The chicken and mushroom dumplings from Mother's Dumplings simply fix most of life's problems. Seriously. Sometimes I convince myself it's been a long day just to justify going out to get food. I do this a lot. It's probably not healthy. There's something comforting in a really good meal made just for you. It's like how I feel when my dad sends me back home with 8 servings of homemade chili and buttered chicken, which only lasts me about 2 days if I'm being honest. It just reminds me of a hug when you need one. It's interesting how food I'd never really had before is what made Toronto feel like home. Since then, I've learned to tune out the shouting that I can hear below me, even on the 16th floor. I've learned that living in an apartment has its own set of quirks to adjust to. But most importantly, I've learned how to make a new place feel like home.
All this talk about snack foods and junk food got us thinking about more healthy food choices.
A few TMU students recently went to Cortona, Italy to take a course, and they discovered something interesting. European food seems to have that extra touch of quality. And at least in Italy, people seem more likely to cook and eat at home with their families. And we wondered, what does it mean for Canadians and our health?
In this next story, Michael Rosa and Natalie Kalnicki investigated why Canadian cuisine falls short compared to its European counterparts.
Ah, Italy, home of stunning landmarks, European culture, and of course, some of the best food you will ever eat. Over this summer, my friend Natalie and I traveled to Cortona, Tuscany for a summer school opportunity. What we quickly realized is how different the food is treated in comparison to back home. Eating in Italy wasn't simply part of a person's day, it was a major focus. Every meal prepared with a rich tapestry of ingredients, every bite tasting better than the last. And then we returned back home.
Personally, I have a really sensitive stomach. And anything I eat in Toronto, I can be eating like a strawberry and I just feel bloated. But in Cortona, I could be eating pasta all day long and gelato and coffee and everything that would make me bloated at home, I'd be eating in Cortona. Nothing.
I really wanted to explore this phenomenon that we were both experiencing. I figured the best way to do that is to ask my travel buddy to invite some people from all different backgrounds and talk about their experiences with travel and, more importantly, food.
From what we know, you guys have done some recent traveling and we want to hear all about that and, more importantly, about the food that you guys ate in these countries.
What countries have you guys traveled to recently?
Caribbean and Italy. Spain and Paris.
Mexico and Kuwait. How could you compare and contrast the food that you ate there in terms of the food that you're eating here?
There's a huge difference, especially like when you're like in Italy or Paris or in the Caribbean. The food is so fresh and you're used to that, and like you're up and going and you're moving, like you notice your energy levels are also up there. Whereas when you're eating Popeyes and food like that, like you're like you don't want to move.
Mexico wasn't too bad. It was better than Canada's food, but Kuwait especially was probably one of the best food I've ever had. They have like laws down there, a lot of laws on food. You can't use any hormones, any preservatives, anything like that. So everything you eat is fresh, even McDonald's and any fast food restaurant.
Takeout culture is not really a thing there. It's very much you sit, you dine in, you eat. I remember I can't remember what restaurant, but I was in a restaurant in Italy and I was like, oh, can I get this to go? They're like, what is that?
Yeah,
what is to go?
Foreign concept to them.
They treat the food and the drinks with such care to the point where like I'd never been bar hopping, but my parents, they wanted to take us. So when we were bar hopping and we went to each bar, we had like a glass of wine and then there was food in like little plates and they just kept serving us, and it was like really, really cheap. Like everything was under like 10 euros for everything you were getting. Like I want to get some food in my system, and you'll go out and you'll get this greasy fried food. But when you were in Spain and you were drinking and you were like having a good time, it was almost this experience where you were eating like good food, like good small food, and you were drinking good wine and it felt relaxed.
After finding out that so many people shared the same experience as we did, I decided to back up my discovery with cold hard facts and get a professional's opinion on the matter. I reached out to Severia De Brato, food specialist and culinary teacher at St. Michael's Catholic Secondary School, to find that information I was hungry for.
We farm heavily on chemicals and GMOs. Europeans, they focus and they don't tolerate poor food. And I think their biggest focus is eating in season. We have the culture of grab and go. The products that we use here in North America are completely different than what they use in the European Union. If you notice, even like their fast food, McDonald's has a huge variety of healthier choices for their side. A lot of our youth just find the easy way. They go out. Let's go out for dinner. You know what? Cooking is not very hard. It's quite easy.
After talking to Severia, I learned how differently food is treated around different parts of the world. It was refreshing to learn that there were actual reasons as to why my experience with food in other countries were so vastly different than here in Canada.
We talked earlier about how almost every Dutch family sits around the table between 5:30 and 6 p.m. to eat their dinner. They often eat home dinners, and it's a big hit. But many families also like to order from time to time.
You might recognize the company Just Eat Takeaway, you know, the one with the orange bags, which is actually originated from a Dutch brand.
Well, that's interesting because in Canada we have a division of that, Just Eat, and it's called Skip the Dishes. But honestly, the more popular takeout and delivery companies are Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub.
I'll actually make a quick comment about that because I had European students come recently and they said their stomachs were burning because of the kind of quality food that we had, and we had no broccoli, we had no proper vegetables. So it's interesting to see, the difference of food quality that we have compared to you guys. But let's get back on the road with Kato and Nika. You went by car to the beach, found snacks, now what?
We start on our way home.
Did you know that 500,000 bikes get stolen each year? That's why many people have 2 bikes here in the Netherlands. Ow! I think I broke my arm!
Here, some paracetamol. Did you know that Dutch house doctors actually prescribe paracetamol for every kind of pain? Hey! Psst, we have a little overview of what today cost us. Spoiler alert, it was not cheap.
Bicycles get stolen a lot in Toronto. Over 800 bicycles were stolen in the city in just the past 5 months.
My bike got stolen when I was 5 years old, actually.
I think for me, in the past 3 years, I've had like 4 bikes stolen. Also just right in front of my house, so.
On our day in a life journey, we actually got into a bike accident to see how much it would cost to get an injury treated by the healthcare here in the Netherlands.
It's a good thing you had paracetamol. In Canada, we call it acetaminophen. A box of 50 tablets costs $13.50 Canadian, or €9.
50 tablets for €9? Here it is €130 for 50 tablets. Healthcare costs around €100 a month, but as we said, we only need the paracetamol, and that's only $130 a pack.
We heard healthcare is free in Canada. Is that true?
A lot of healthcare is covered by government insurance. If you need to see your family doctor or dermatologist or get an operation, there's no cost.
But some things like vision, dental care, physiotherapy, to name a few, are not exactly covered by our insurance.
Some people, but definitely not everybody, have extra coverage for these things through their work or their school. One thing that can be very expensive is mental health care. Mustafa, Kate, and Mary from TMU explore mental health care in Canada.
Since 2020, Canadians between the age of 18 and 25 have reported higher levels of anxiety, loneliness, and depression. With Canada's mental health care system being privatized, many students can't afford the necessary mental health care they need, such as counseling and medication, as it is not covered by the Ontario Health Insurance Plan. As a result, it limits students' options and makes them pay out of pocket.
Well, I've been to a few therapy sessions and they were a little too expensive for me, so I had to find other ways to cope with stress. So usually I'll bring a little soccer ball to school where I just kick it around whenever I have time. I've recently tried puppy yoga, and it was helpful, but not enough because the dogs don't talk back to me.
One of the ways that Yusuf copes with stress is by attending a free therapy dog program at TMU. It is known for helping students wind down, connect with themselves, improve their mental well-being, and play with cute dogs. While the program has many short-term benefits, it is not an adequate substitute for needed mental health care support like therapy sessions with a professional. Now, let's hear what one international student has to say about the university-provided student insurance and on-campus counseling services.
I do think it's a really good resource that the university provides. I am on the wait list, which I joined this semester right after I quit the therapy that I was in before. I wanted to continue, but what I was told that the waiting list is very long, and it's been sort of 2 months since I applied, so I still haven't gotten a spot yet.
Unfortunately, the average wait times for therapist appointments in Ontario is between 67 and 92 days. In 2020, 1 in 4 hospitalizations among individuals under the age of 24 were a result of mental health conditions. Due to the ongoing mental health crisis, the Mental Health Strategy for Canada has recommended raising the spending proportion devoted to mental health to 9%.
99% of my clients discuss the financial strains. The amount of clients that cancel or aren't able to even start therapy, it's a really big problem. So you're basically asking students, and you're asking everyone in general, to either be mentally healthy or to live. The fact that insurance is not covering mental health is actually going to affect a lot more people than they realize.
As OHIP is yet to cover essential therapy sessions, students are faced with hourly rates for appointment, ranging from $220 to $250 an hour with a psychologist and $180 to $190 an hour with a social worker.
Here I find that the therapy is quite expensive, and as like an international student who's working minimum wage, I can't really afford therapy right now.
Considering that many students are experiencing a financial squeeze due to the constantly increasing cost of living, students are pushed to sacrifice their mental health.
There are some websites like Open Path and Psychology Today that offer cheaper therapy. I would always say to not be embarrassed or not be shy to ask if the person is offering cheaper therapy or pro bono session if you feel connected to them.
Due to the rising cost of living, both domestic and international students in Canada must navigate the hard reality of sacrifice, where self-care is a luxury that not many students can afford.
I mean, mental health care here in the Netherlands has actually been taken care of pretty well. You pay a little bit out of your own risk, but the rest is covered by most health insurance companies.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the case here is that during COVID, we saw a rise in a lot of need for mental health care services provided to students, people with low income, and people who can't afford the insurance. And unfortunately, it just wasn't something Canada was able to provide. And so we're feeling the ramifications from that now. And, it's tough because it's a super important thing that we need to have in our culture here, and it's something that we need to have fixed eventually.
One thing's for sure, it's expensive to be a student whether you're taking the train, buying food, or seeking healthcare.
Back to our trip, Kato and I finished our little journey by making a budget.
We did a comparison. There is a beautiful place near here called Center Island in Toronto. To take a public transit round trip and a ferry round trip,
as well as enjoying lunch with a soda, renting a bike for 2 hours, and then relaxing while savoring an ice cream in the park.
It would cost 96 Canadian dollars though, or 64 euros. And you need to work almost 6 hours at Ontario's minimum wage to afford all this, just for one day of fun.
We created a budget as well. Lots of TMU students commute from home. Caitlin is one of them. She decided to find out whether her daily costs are more or less than students who live in downtown.
Hi everyone, I'm Sabrina. My name is Caitlin Edwards. I'm a first-year student here at TMU, and I am a third-year media production student at Toronto Metropolitan University. I am in the DCC residence. I just so happen to live about 50 minutes away, so follow me on my day in a life as a commuter student. One of the advantages of living on residence is definitely being on campus 24/7. I'm very thankful I don't have to wake up super early to commute. Today is Monday, which means that we have to catch the 7:45 train, which means that I have to leave my house at around 7:15 the latest because it takes me about 14 minutes to get to the GO station. And every day that I go downtown, I'm spending $6.84 on a one-way trip to Union Station from Whitby. And then once I get to the TTC, I'm spending about $3.35 to get to Yonge and Dundas. And once I get to Yonge and Dundas, all I have to do is literally walk upstairs because my first class is in the Cineplex. So I stop by the Starbucks, grab myself a coffee, and then I make my way to class. If you live in DCC, it's mandatory to get a meal plan, which does have its advantages and disadvantages. Disadvantages, obviously, it's gonna be more expensive, but that means you don't really have to buy groceries. We still do, just to have like food here in the house if we're feeling hungry and don't want to go out, but we don't have to cook whole meals and stuff. We can go to the dining hall, and we're very fortunate we can do that. Depending on the day, I don't always need to buy food downtown, but today especially I do because it is a very long day for me here. I had my 9 to 12 class, now I have a 3-hour break, so I'm literally just gonna head down to the cafeteria in Yonge and Dundas and just get myself some food there. And at 3 o'clock I have my afternoon class from 3 until 6, and after that I get to go home. The process of me getting home is the exact same as it is to get downtown, so I'm basically doubling my spending money from what I spent this morning to what I will spend in the afternoon. I'd say a disadvantage of living on residence is definitely the cost. We are so fortunate that we get to live in this residence, especially DCC, because it's the newest and most renovated residence. It is the most expensive, but it's all worth it, and we're so fortunate we get to experience this. As much as I talk about the different costs of commuting downtown, I'm actually saving a lot of money considering I live at home, and so I'm not paying the rent that others that live in Toronto would have to.
Just how expensive is it to rent an apartment in Toronto?
The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in Toronto is $2,500 per month, or about 1,675 euros. What about in Breda? You said earlier in your video, Kato, that your rent has just gone up.
Yes, it has gone up a very much amount. I usually pay 380 and now I pay 525 euros for my 20 square bedroom. In Breda, the rooms can go from 500 to 700 euros for 15 square meters. It really depends on where you live. But in Amsterdam, you can pay easily 1,000 euros for a bedroom that is 10 square meters or even less.
That's cheaper than what we spend, but it sounds like the spaces are really small.
Yes, and I also read a story about one woman in Toronto who is actually renting out half of her bed.
Yes. It's really hard to find an apartment that some people are renting closest to spaces on floors in someone's living room.
Let's just say being a student and trying to afford things is quite the challenge, especially with the rising cost of everything.
It's really interesting to compare our costs to those in the Netherlands. Especially, I went to Europe recently about 4 months ago, and I saw that you guys pay for just smaller things that we don't pay for, like things like butter and syrup, especially for food. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I don't think we've ever really thought about it, but having this conversation and this opportunity to talk with you and see these differences actually made us realize, like, wow, actually around the world, some things are really the same or completely different. For example, what you said, like about the sauces as well, that really shocked me as well, that we actually have to pay for it and you get it for free.
And it's interesting because we get it in large portions. Like your butters are like 2 euros and ours are unlimited. So but you guys give like powdered sugar for free. So I saw it on the table and I was so joyful, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it's the little things, I think, also. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's it for our show.
Yeah, thank you for watching.
We also have 4 other shows that you can watch on our website, YouTube, with stories from students in Hong Kong, England, Brazil, California, and South Africa.
And you can check them out at global-campus.org.
And this has been
The View from Here.
Bye-bye.
Give me the bitter ball.
Look, they're eating the poutine they don't like.
I want to eat more bitter ball.